They were the terror of the galaxy, an unstoppable force feared by all. But when they crossed paths with humans, everything changed. With just a single warship, humanity unleashed a response no one saw coming. Buckle up, because this story is one wild ride you won't want to miss. The words echoed in all directions through the light-year-permeated void. Captain of the human battleship Vanguard made a grim vow, and the crew's steel and courage hardened, knowing the weight of those words, though as they echoed through the Scots, no one wavered. They have been waiting for this moment for a long time, waiting for the chance to face the dragon, the scourge of the galaxy, and avenge the atrocities they have committed. The Girona are a race of conquerors. Their sphere of influence spans dozens of systems and leaves nothing but ruins wherever they go. They were creatures born of shadow and fire, their vast navies unstoppable, their technology incomprehensible to most empires, and before them all species were driven into extinction or slavery. The horror in mythology was whispering in the darkness of space until they came to the Milky Way with anger, unparalleled in recorded history, but humans were different. Humans heard that these stories looked at Draen's consumption, and their neighbors were getting closer and closer to the Earth. They are not blind to impending doom, but where others beg for mercy or try to hide, humanity is ready. Earth's resources come from all corners of the planet and work together. They knew they would not talk, would not be passed, and would not be rescued from the stars. There is still only one truth in human expression. Forged in the furnace of despair, the Vanguard is a ship unlike any other in human history. It is a behemoth built not just for war but for the total destruction of anything that dares to threaten humanity, equipped with weapons that can bend the fabric of space and can withstand the heart of a star and the fury of 1,000 suns. Which gives strength. It was humanity's answer to the Draen menace, and now it was humanity. The spear pointed directly at the heart of the Draen Empire. "We are approaching the outer defense network," the captain reported to Lieutenant Harris. His voice was steady and gave no hint of the crew's nervousness. Captain Marcus Locke nodded, his eyes fixed on the view screen showing the cold expanse ahead. Draen's defense grid is a legend. It is not an ordinary ship and is not crushed and crushed. It is not ordinary, El is an Icky Almindig. Vanguard blinked and disappeared from sight. Advanced stealth technology encases the ship in a bubble that cannot be detected by the dragon's sensors. There is no space there, but humans know better. They know that Draen relied on their outstanding technologies and arrogance, which made them blind to the threat that might bypass its defense, and we are in a proper position. Harris reported that a maximum lock was inserted. The order is that the Pioneer's hull opened in several places, and each projectile was started from a smooth black projectile, and each projectile was embedded in the liquid battlefield and patrol ship. They were not weapons in the traditional sense, but infiltration devices when attached. They began researching Draen technology, breaking into systems, overpowering management, and turning the once deadly defense network into an active puppet of the Vanguard's will. Captain Harris says we have the net under control. Goodlock said it with a rare smile. Instead of releasing missiles or energy blasts, the ship used a protective grid against itself. The battle stations turned on each other and fired on their allied patrol ships, exploding in sudden, unprovoked attacks and mines. The detonations were detonated in carefully calculated patterns, destroying the Dragon's defenses without the Vanguard itself firing a single shot. Crew saw the once impenetrable barrier crumble before them, but none of them relaxed, knowing that this was only the beginning. The Draen would not sit idly by as their defenses were dismantled. They would strike back, and when they did, they would do so with the full force of their war machine. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Draen command," said Harris Patch. "That through lock," the vis screen replied. Flickered, and a Draen warlord's visage filled the screen. Creature is majestic even by human standards, its body encased in dark, segmented armor that seems to have a life of its own, its eyes burning with cold fire, and its voice a deep growl that sends shivers down weak human spines. The warlord spat as if the word itself were poison. "How dare you oppose the Dragon Empire? Your bad world will burn, and your people will fall to our feet." Lockup's smile is colder than empty. "You already know it's your turn. Before the warlords can react, it's our turn." Lock on and order a fire. The Vanguard unleashes its full arsenal, a symphony of destruction echoing through the darkness of space, energy beams bursting. Arriving in the Dragon ship, the missiles found their mark with great precision, sending the entire space into space waves when the Vanguard's most powerful weapon came into play. The once seemingly invincible fleet of dragons was now being torn apart by human warships one by one. The warlord's image flickered and then disappeared, his ship destroyed by the blast from the Vanguard's main battery. Crew watched in silence, knowing that this was only the first step in a much larger battle. They were deep in Drayan territory now, and there would be no turning back. "Captain," said Harris in his voice. "Enemy reinforcements are coming in, and their main fleet is on their way," Hosua said, his eyes burning with the same cold fire as the dragon warlord. "Let them come, and we will show them what it means to meet humanity." The Vanguard turned the bow of the ship towards the center of the Dragon Empire, its engines blazing as it accelerated into the abyss, the crew bracing themselves for what was to come, knowing this was the moment they had now been training for. Spent his whole life. Go and wait. As the stars pass them by, Captain Locke issues an order that will determine Drago's fate. The Vanguard tore through the blackness of space, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The remnants of the Drayan defense grid floated aimlessly, lifeless, in a drift as the ship powered toward its next target. "Captain Dragon Lord World, we have discovered the Dragon Lord's fleet on an interception route." Lieutenant Harris, fingers dancing on the console, reported that they would be in range. After 10 minutes, Captain Marcus Locke looked at the tactical display. His slurred expression. The drone fleet was massive, a veritable armada of death, battleships the size of small moonships with fighters and cruisers armed with weapons that could destroy planets. It was a force meant to crush any opposition, a force that had done so countless times across the galaxy, but this time they faced something different. The drone Locke commanded, his voice calm. The Vanguard's hull opened once more this time, releasing a swarm of autonomous drones. These are not the typical combat drones used in previous conflicts. They were experimentally built specifically for this task. Each is equipped with advanced artificial intelligence, able to learn and adapt on the fly, and equipped with advanced weaponry. People have developed futuristic drones that disappear from sight using cloaking devices. They moved with a wide range of target distributions to intercept the DRA fleet, which was captured by the DRA fleet. He is a gray veteran. If anyone understood the stakes, it was Grimlock, who nodded, never leaving the tactical display, and told them to come over. "It's every minute we're here. Every minute feels like an eternity." Crew remained silent. Tension was palpable as they watched the blips on the screen draw closer. The Vanguard continued its relentless advance without showing any sign of hesitation. Finally, a fleet of drones came into view. It was a great sight to see the sea of large ships, each one more menacing than the last. Their movements were in perfect harmony, a testament to the ruthless efficiency of dragon warfare. The machine and the crew, ready for battle, locked and commanded, his voice echoing through the ship's corridors. Crew responded immediately, and everyone was in position, ready to take whatever action was necessary to ensure victory. The Dragon fired the first shot, a barrage of energy beams and missiles lighting up the darkness, the Vanguard's shields glowing as they absorbed the initial impact, but Locke knew this was just the beginning. "Drones engaged as the enemy," Harris reported. The display screen is divided into several feeds, each playing a different perspective on another drone. Machines powered by artificial intelligence weave through a fleet of dragons, precisely dodging enemy fire and counterattacking with deadly precision. There are explosions in the dragon's ranks as the drones target weak spots and exploit any weaknesses, but the dragon is no stranger to war. They quickly adjusted their firepower and shot down every drone that successfully shot down a dragon ship from the sky. 2 others were destroyed in the process. "Drone losses are increasing." Captain Harris warned that it was fine. Locke answered his tone. "By measurement, they have achieved their goal." He pressed a button on the remote and the tactical display began to move, showing the true nature of the drone attack. As the drones fell, they released a cloud of nanobots, microscopic machines that could infiltrate and disable enemy systems. The nanobots swarmed over the drone ships, invisible to the naked eye but deadly in their power grids and failed weapon systems. Malfunctioned, and communication lines went silent. The Drayan fleet, once a synchronized instrument of destruction, was descending into chaos. "Now it's our turn," said Locke, to narrow the Pioneer's range, thrust its engines forward, bring it to near-relativistic levels, and speed up the roar of the ship's weapons, unleashing blasts of energy and orbital cannonballs that tear the tattered Dragon apart. A boat. The main cannon fired a beam of pure destruction, splitting the Dragon flagship in half. Dragon tried to regroup and launch a counterattack, but it was too late. The nanites had done their job so well that the vanguards were now in their ranks, an unstoppable force tearing through their ranks, human warships moving with deadly grace. It's every shot that finds its mark. It's every move that beats the enemy fleet's fleet of ships. Captain Harris's voice was full of disbelief. After completing the lock, the Order's crew followed his orders ruthlessly. There was no mercy, no hesitation, only the cold, calculated destruction of an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for too long. The Vanguard's weapons continued to fire, cutting down ship after ship until there was nothing left but debris and the faint echoes of what had once been the Darian's greatest fleet. As the last Gyron ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the crew let out a collective breath. They had done it against all odds. They had destroyed the heart of the Dragon war machine, but none of them celebrated. They know the mission is not over yet. Before we even got to the captain, we got a message from Harris from Earth Command, who told us to break the silence and get it through the lock. The old man looked at Haggard, his features clearly showing the severity of war, but his eyes were sharp, filled with the same fire that burned in the lock. Captain Locke Graves began to speak. "Gravy, we have received your successful message. The Dragon fleet no longer exists, but the problems in their homeland remain. The Dragons will pay for everything they do. Good luck. Captain Earth is counting on you." The broadcast ended, leaving the crew in silence once again, facing their men, his expression as hard as ever as he prepared for his final approach. "He told us to end it." The Vanguard moved forward, through the void, towards the Dragon's homeworld. There is no turning back now. They had drawn first blood, but the final battle was yet to come, and Locke knew deep in his bones that this was the moment that would decide the fate of humanity and the galaxy itself. The Draen's homeworld, Nara, loomed ahead as a dark, boing planet, surrounded by a dense network of orbital defenses and planetary shields. Planet looks like a mass of rolling storm clouds and volcanic eruptions. Presents a hellish scene that reflects the nature of its inhabitants. This was the heart of the Draen Empire, the source of all the pain and destruction they had inflicted on the galaxy, but now that the heart was about to be stopped, the Vanguard slowed as it approached the planet, its weapons systems ready for the final assault crew. Each man focused on the task at hand, knowing this was the endgame. They had made it this far. There was no room for doubt, no room for fear. The captain was within range of the planet's defenses. Lieutenant Harris reported, his voice steady as he activated the nanocloud. Captain Locke releases the command from the Vanguard's hull, unleashing a swarm of nanobots. A shimmering swarm that spread out in all directions. The nanites, invisible to the naked eye, began to dismantle the Draen orbital defenses piece by piece, disassembling the massive gun platforms, missile silos, and energy turrets that ring the planet. It was an operation that would have taken whole fleets, but Vanguard did it alone. Nanites, working with surgical accuracy to neutralize all threats, take a massive peak of energy from the surface of Horus. They seem to be upgrading some kind of superweapon like Locke's eyes. Zooming out takes us into a low orbit, ready to engage the Vanguard down to the planet and skimming the upper atmosphere as it approaches the source of the energy spike below. The surface of Nara is a nightmare, a black rock-melting river and a coarse spike. Draens stretched out of the ground like the teeth of some old animals and made their world a fortress, a place for war. The Vanguard sensors detected a massive structure, a fortress that overshadowed everything else. They've encountered it before. The Dragon Clan has gathered its last position here. This is the last defensive fortress. Locked on before they had a chance to fire, the Vanguard's main cannon swung into place with its aiming system locked onto the fortress, but before they could fire, the planet's surface erupted in a burst of energy fire. The Dragon's superweapon fired a massive energy beam at the Vanguard, setting up for a ram lock. The ship shuddered and yelled as the beam hit. Shields, energy crackling against the hull, the shields held, but that was only how powerful the superweapon was. The Terrans' last-ditch efforts to destroy the human warships brought their empire to its knees at critical levels. Cried Captain Harris. "We can't take another blow like this." The lock bites and shoots the main gun. Now that the Vanguard fired a brilliant beam of energy at the Dragon Fortress, the bullet struck the center, piercing the fortress shields and striking the heart of the superweapon. There was a moment of silence, and then the fortress exploded in a massive fireball. The impact wave, which crushed over the surface of the planet, released the collective encouragement as the fortress was reduced to debris, but the lock remained focused. He knew this was only the beginning of the end. "Captain, we've destroyed the superweapon, but we're detecting a massive energy surge." Harris's voice echoed around the world, full of concern. "They appear to be activating a self-destruct protocol." The entire planet was about to explode, and Locke's eyes widened. Dragons are determined to eliminate as many enemies as possible. If the planet exploded, the resulting explosion would not only destroy the Vanguard but potentially damage the planet as well. "The shockwave is moving through the galaxy, we have to stop." It turns on in his mind, targeting the planet's core. "We must destabilize the chain reaction before it's too late," with Vanguard weapons locked deep in the planet's core. It's a desperate move that could hasten the planet's destruction if they miscalculate. But there was no other option. Firing in 3, 2, 1, Locks counted down, the ship fired its weapons, piercing through the planet's crust and drilling deep into the core. The shots hit with precision, targeting the geothermal energy centers that powered the planet's doomsday protocols. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to shake, great fissures opened, and magma spewed into the atmosphere. Chain reaction was terminated. The glitter of the planet self-destructed, but the damage was done. Planet is falling apart. Crust buckles under pressure, the terrain cracks and changes, and the core is unstable, and we have to get away. Urgently announcing that the planet was about to explode, Captain Steele locked it down, nodded, and kept us out of the blast radius. Behind them, Nara began to crumble. The entire surface buckled and folded inward as the core raced against time, pushing the engines to their limits. "Come on, Locke," he muttered under his breath, eyes locked on the view screen before finally shuddering. An explosion on Earth is a huge supernova-like incident that caused the impact wave in space. Pioneer was caught on the outside of the explosion, and the boat shook violently as it drove the impact wave, but the shield kept the engine. Ace from the explosion. The slowly sinking drone on the homeworld was destroyed along with the last remnants of the drone empire. The horror that had plagued the galaxy for so long was over. Captain Locke stood at the helm, staring at the empty space where Nara once stood. He smiled, a smile of triumphant contentment. "Done," he said softly. Crew cheered for the intensity of the mission. In the end, celebrating an impossible victory, they defeat a seemingly unstoppable enemy against all odds. They won, the galaxy was free, and the Vanguard turned on Earth. There is no need for words. Every man on that ship knew what they had achieved. It was those who had been against the darkness that had been exposed to the terror of Drayan and victorious as the ship sailed through the void. Captain Locke allowed himself one last look at the empty space behind them where the Drayan Empire had met its end, and then, with one last nod of satisfaction, he turned his attention to the future they had fought so hard for.